We're almost done with our study guide, and for this set, we're going to use order of operations or PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So PEMDAS says to do parentheses first, and in this example, there's nothing to do in parentheses. Then it says to do exponents. There are no exponents. Then it says to multiply or divide. There's actually no multiplying or dividing here either. And then we add and subtract from left to right. So this first set I see different signs. So I have to subtract first 33 7/10 minus 0 and 81/100. I'm going to add a 0 placeholder up here. I have to do some borrowing. 10 minus 1 is 9. Do more borrowing. 16 minus 8 is 8. And 2 minus 0 is 2. 3 minus nothing is 3. So this first answer here is 32 and 89/100. And then it wants us to add that to 6 and 45/100. So I'm just going to carry that on right here. 9 plus 5 is 14. Carry my 1. 1 plus 8 is 9. Plus 4 is 13. Carry my 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 6 is 9. And 3 and nothing is 3. Bring my decimal point down. And my final answer for this first problem is 39 and 34/100. I see this as close to 34 minus 1, which is 33. 33 plus about 6 is about 39, and so my answer here, 39 and 34/100, using estimation, seems reasonable. On this next one, it's a little bit tricky to understand what's going on here. You have to be really careful of your signs. When you see a number outside of parentheses, that means that these two things are being multiplied, and we multiply before we subtract according to PEMDAS. Multiply comes before subtract. So I'm actually going to copy, change so that I see a negative times a negative, which is a positive, and I'm going to multiply these two things first. So when you see parentheses and there's a number just outside of parentheses, you know that these two things are being multiplied if there's no sign between. And 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. There's one digit after the decimal point here. There are no numbers after the decimal point here, and so my answer has one decimal point, and it's 14 and 7/10. And so we're going to do 3 plus 14 and 7/10, and I know that 3 is a whole number, so my decimal goes after the 3, and I plus 3 and 0/10, and when I add, I bring my decimal straight down, and my final answer here is 17 and 7/10. Again, if I want to double check my answer, I know that a negative 7 times a negative 2 is about positive 14. 14 plus 3 is 17, and so my answer seems reasonable and checks in terms of making sense. The next one, I'm going to do exponents first because we do exponents before we add. So I've got negative 1 and 5/10, and I know that 4 to the second power is 4 times 4, which is 16. So I'm going to show that step, 4 times 4, and then show that I'm adding 16. When signs are different, we subtract. So I'm just going to do this out to the side here, 16 minus 1 and 5/10. 16 is the bigger number, so it goes on top. And I'm going to have to do some borrowing here. 10 minus 5 is 5. 5 minus 1 is 4. And 1 minus nothing is 1. And signs are different, so I subtract and keep the sign of the higher number, which is positive. And so my answer here is 14 and 5/10. Again, this is about 16 minus 2 is about positive 14. Seems reasonable and makes sense. And then for the last one, we always do what's inside parentheses first. I'm going to copy, change. And signs are different, so I subtract 3 and 5/10 minus 2 and 8/10. 5 minus 8 I can't do, so I borrow, and I get 0 and 7/10. Now I have 0 and 7/10 to the second power, which means I'm doing 0 and 7/10 times 0 and 7/10. 7 times 7 is 49. 7 times 0 is 0, plus 4 is 4. And there's one number after my decimal here, one number after this one, so that means there's 2 in my answer. And so my answer here is 0 and 49/100. When I think about that, this is about negative 1 to the second power is about positive 1. Negative times a negative is a positive. And so this seems close enough to 1 that I'll say, yeah, it makes sense and I can move on.